All right, guys. Hello and welcome to episode number 309 of the Restoring Rapport podcast. I'm super excited for the content we've got planned out for you guys today. As always, this is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family and trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way. I'm your host, Seth Hensley. I come on twice a week, every week on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the benefits of getting married young, but I attempt to equip and encourage you in your pursuit of that goal. And today is a really special episode. As our Christmas special, we are going to be looking back at the previous year of the show and going over all of the stats, all of the growth, all of the things that I've done for this podcast and reflecting on that, as well as what you guys have done to keep this show going and show your support. So really excited for this. Hope you guys have had a wonderful year. Hope you have a Merry Christmas. And without further ado, let's go ahead and see what this past year looked like. Because every year I do this, is just a way of showing all the growth that we've had in the previous year. And it's just so cool for me to see what kind of keep a journal, so to speak, of what I've done with the show and what episodes you guys have liked and what I need to do next year so that you will basically continue to enjoy the content. So it says, without further ado, the Restoring Rapport podcast wrap season is here. I'm using the Spotify podcast distribution platform. A lot of you guys know that Spotify gives you a wrapped at the end of the year personally on your individual accounts, but it also gives podcasters a wrapped showing basically all the things that all the ways the podcast has grown, and gives us some actually useful stats on what you guys enjoy listening to the most. And that really informs what kind of content I make the next year. Basically, what helped you the most that I made this year. It says fans were really loving your show in 2024. You took it to a whole new level. Well, I definitely know that because there was a lot of work involved. I put out 2 episodes every single week for the entire year of 2024. I don't think I missed a single episode airing, which is like hundreds of episodes. We've gotten to 300 so far. I don't know exactly how many we published this year, but we're on 309 now, and I started in September of 2020. So the show's been going for years now, coming up on our 5th year active. So really crazy. But it says here we gained 7%. There was a 7% uptick in streams. So basically, I think what that means is compared to last year, we got 7% more plays this year. That's awesome. Glad you guys liked it. We also, what else is it saying here? We also got 48% more followers than last year. So our follower count went up by 48%, which is awesome. What do they have here? This is like a top demographics, top communities. We can look at that. That'll be really cool to look at the end, because I want to see it. I'm curious to see kind of what that's about. It's basically telling us some more stats on you guys as listeners. It says giving it up for our new fans. Honestly, I don't think there are that many people. We have our target audience is young believers ages 18 to 24. And the last time I looked, I think this may have changed though in this podcast year, but the last I looked, our biggest listener group was actually young men ages 18 to 24. And about 75% of our listeners fell in that category. But I think that's changed since this has come out. It says 83% of our listeners here discovered the podcast this year, which is crazy. So 83%, let me read that again. 83% of our listeners discovered the podcast this year. That is wild. I did not know that. So that's been a big year of growth for us, for sure. And I bet here it says your fans have a clear favorite. I bet they're going to show us your favorite episode that we put out all year. And it was episode 253, debate, is marriage a bad deal for men? This was a debate between Pearl Davis and Trent Horn, hosted by Matt Fradd, that I really, really liked doing. I think Landon and I actually reviewed this episode, and it was really good. I think I should go back to reviewing debates because, man, guys, that was debates are so nice because you get both sides of the issue and you're able to react and respond to both sides of the issue and kind of point out the strengths and shortcomings of both sides. And I really, really like those. And they try to be, Matt is usually really good at being as objective as possible. One day I'd actually like to host my own debate and moderate. It would be really fun to do that, I think. Maybe even on the issue of whether or not getting married young was a bad idea or a good idea. And then this is what it was. It was streamed 304% more than our average episode, which is insane. That's crazy. I'm glad you guys like that one. I will certainly do more reviews on debates. And also, maybe you listen because of Trent Horn, who is amazing, or I doubt you listen because of Pearl Davis, because if you listen to the show, you probably are more in alignment with Trent Horn. But so I'll try to review more of his content next year. But some of you may have just wanted to watch it, honestly, because Pearl Davis was in it, and she said such crazy things that you wanted to see kind of what she was going to say that time in that debate, which the clickbait, strategy for building an online following is certainly nothing to be laughed at, but I just don't think that it's the kind of community you want to build, because you want to build a community that is getting value from your words and your content, not somebody who's just there to see what new crazy thing you say, even if they disagree. I mean, that's at least what I'm trying to do, and that's pretty difficult. But it says, have you ever wondered who your audience is? And they're going to break it down for us here. Listeners by age, 18. Okay, so 18 to 24 still is pretty large, but that's actually not our biggest audience right now, which is shocking to me because I'm aiming at 18 to 24. But really, I'm aiming at pre-marriage people, which sadly, I guess, is the 35 to 44 sometimes nowadays. And again, I've talked about, how we're postponing marriage later and later into the future, and how, a long time ago, the average age of first marriage for women was 20, and the average age of first marriage for men was 23. That was back in 1960, I believe. And then fast forward to present day, you've got the average age of first marriage for women being like 27, and the average age of first marriage for men being 29 to 30. So definitely we're postponing marriage later and later. So theoretically, this could still be my target audience, young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family and trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way. It's just that they're not married yet, even though they're like 30 years old, which is wild to me. But it says 18 to 24-year-olds, and about 19% of our show are 18 to 24-year-olds. 25 to 29, in that age range, 22% of those people, of our listeners, are in that range. 19% of our listeners are 30 to 34 years old. 27% of our listeners are 35 to 44. I don't even know how that's possible, but that's interesting. And this is, by the way, not counting YouTube stats. YouTube is actually the biggest following my show, the biggest amount of listens my show gets now by far. So this is just the podcast non-video format. YouTube is an entirely different story. But then 7% of our listeners are 45 to 54. That makes sense because they're older and way past the season that I'm talking to. And then 6% are 55 and up, which also makes sense because I'm not, again, talking to those people. But this was an interesting little graphic here. I'm really shocked that our biggest listenership here was 35 to 44. That's really surprising to me. But I don't know. I'm glad. Hopefully it helps you guys. And then listeners ages 55 plus grew the most by 100%. That was probably those few amount of people who were over 55 plus who were listening, who were probably just curious about what I was doing and knew me in my personal life. That was probably them. That nobody was listening, and then they found out I did one, so they started listening. It says, where in the world have you been? We're probably looking here at what countries have actually listened to my show. It says in 2024, your show traveled the globe. You were streamed in 13 countries. So we've been streamed in 13 countries, guys. That's actually, I think, the same exact number that we were streamed last year. So we haven't grown in that way. But honestly, I'm not surprised because I'm not doing any sort of marketing, or I don't really know anybody in other countries or anything like that. So I'm shocked there are even 13 countries at all that heard it. So especially because, English is a large, widely spoken language, but interesting. It says United States was our top country. No shocker there. And then it says your fans have great taste, obviously. Well, thank you very much. It says, other than your show, they also loved... Oh, this is going to be interesting. So the number one show that you guys also loved was the Joe Rogan Experience. That honestly doesn't say much, though, because Joe Rogan, I'm pretty sure last I looked, has the number one listened to podcast in the world. And so he has listeners of all kinds of genres. And so just the odds are, you're going to be a fan of Joe Rogan. Number two is the Whatever Podcast. Man, that podcast triggers me so much. I disagree with Brian Atlas and usually half of his panel in extreme ways. Now, I do like his podcast setup. He has on people from various backgrounds, usually more conservative and more liberal, more sort of religious and more progressive. And he sits them down on the same table and has them talk about their opinion on hot topic issues. So it's a pretty controversial podcast, and they get sometimes pretty, what's the word? Like they're pretty, they're pretty in your face about it. Like they're not very cordial in the way they talk to each other. So that's usually why I don't listen. And also, I just get so triggered, man, because he has people on there who just say things that I think are so just harmful and not in alignment with the narrow way that I can barely watch it. The Property Couch, Property Finance and Money Management by Bryce Holdaway and Ben Kingsley. This is a podcast I've actually never listened to myself, so I should definitely check that out. But that was the number 3, so a lot of you guys liked that one. Again, the first podcast you mostly listen to is Joe Rogan, then whatever podcast, then The Property Couch, and then Blurry Creatures. So I have no idea what this is. Blurry Creatures must be, I'm guessing, like an app on like, man, I don't even know. Is it on like myths and sort of folk tales and stuff, maybe urban legends, or, I don't know, something like that. I have no idea. But Blurry Creatures is the number 4. And then Coffee Convos with Kale Lowry and Lindsay Chrisley. I've never heard that one either. I'll need to check that one out. It looks like 2 women who are, the coffee podcast, group is just huge, guys. There are so many podcasts about just talking over coffee that it's insane. Like if I were to look up the number 1 podcast genre, like the genre that had the most podcasts within it, I guarantee you it would be coffee and something. Like coffee podcasts are everywhere, man. They're everywhere. So I'm not shocked that one is on there, but you guys really like this one. And I need to go back and check out some of these, especially these 3 at the bottom here that I've never heard of. That's really cool. And then music that you guys enjoy. This is really interesting. So the top music that you guys enjoy, your number 1 genre is pop. Most of you like pop. And then number 2 is Art Deco. I've never even heard of that. But it sounds really interesting. In fact, I could even honestly listen to some of this and just not know it because I don't really keep up with podcast genres. Spotify does help me a little bit with that, but I listen based on sound, melody, and tune. I don't listen based on genre, artist, or style. And so it's really hard I don't really care about what genre a song is in as long as I think it has a good melody and sounds good to my ear. And so I actually could listen to this Art Deco style and just not even know. Number 3, though, is New Wave. Again, don't know what that style is. In fact, let me just Google that really quickly here for you because I'm kind of curious as to what, Art Deco style even is. Art Deco style music is like a style that combines classical and popular music with jazz influences. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. A style that combines classical and popular music with jazz influences. That sounds pretty nice. What is the other one? New Wave? Let's see what that is. New Wave music definition. New Wave is a popular music genre that originated in the late 1970s and early 1980s. It is a broad subgenre of rock and roll that combines elements of pop, art, rock, synth pop, funk, and reggae. It is known for its eclectic sound, synthesizer-driven tracks, and distinctive fashion. That is definitely not me. Personally, I don't like synthesized music. I don't know. If it's just my hatred of a lot of the way the modern world is going, or if it's just my sort of ancient inclinations. But I like strings. That is where I think it's at. It's violin and cello. I listen to a lot of epiccore and movie soundtracks, scores, and trailers. I don't really listen to any other kinds of music as far as a genre. I listen to worship music. I listen to, I guess, acoustic and folk. Acoustic and folk I listen to a lot. And then epiccore I listen to a lot. It's pretty much sums up my music taste entirely. I don't really listen to anything else. But I don't listen to it again just because it's in that genre. I listen to it because I like the sound of it, and therefore most of the time what I listen to is in that genre, if that makes sense. It's not because I just search acoustic and folk and only listen to that. I listen to everything, and usually what I end up picking out falls in those 2 categories, epiccore or acoustic and folk. Audiobooks. This is really interesting. So the audiobooks that you guys enjoy are, number 1, romance audiobooks. So I'm really pleased to hear that. Romance audiobooks, I think, reflect your desire to be married. And so naturally, as somebody who's moving towards the goal of marriage and family, romance is something that you're going to really enjoy. And then health and wellness is another thing that you should enjoy, because you should be trying to better yourself as a potential spouse, and you should be moving towards the goal of marriage and making yourself a really, really good spouse prior to entering the marriage. And so health and wellness is obviously a huge part of that. Self-help, I'm also not shocked on, because one thing that is common among people who want to have streams of income that make it possible for them to not work jobs so that they can have more time with their family and their spouse is self-help. A lot of people who are trying to do that listen to self-help. So on this show, I talk about a lot of ways that you can spend more time with your family. And man, if you can avoid working a 9 to 5, that's a great way to do that. Now, it's really hard to avoid working a 9 to 5 and still provide for a family, because that's the way that most people provide for a family now. They go through the standard way of generating value and money. And, but it is possible. And I know people who have machines that they've created that make money for them, and their time is freed up to spend on things that they consider more valuable than working at 9 to 5. And so those things would look like, for me, spending more time with your spouse. And so obviously self-help, I'm not shocked, is a common. I'm really pleased with this, because this means that I'm actually, what my words are saying is actually resonating with the audience that I intended it to resonate with. Like, you guys who are passionate about this same stuff that I am, audiobooks, romance audiobooks, health and wellness audiobooks, self-help audiobooks, at least what I'm saying is hitting home with you, and you're listening to my content because I'm addressing those things as well. It says listeners can't keep their eyes off you here. Our videos were watched 121% more in 2024 than in 2023. I think this is referring to this has to be referring to the what's it called? The Spotify video platform instead of YouTube, because I don't think this has access to YouTube's like their analytics and their statistics on my videos, because I don't think those accounts are necessarily connected. Now, they might be using the links that I attach in the podcast show notes to communicate that, but I doubt it. I'd say this is actually a low estimate, because since we just started maintaining our YouTube account like a lot this year and posting every video we make to YouTube, every podcast we make to YouTube, I'd say this is way higher than 121%. Like, because whenever you start making something on something new, anybody who listens is new, and anybody who listens is a new follower, a new viewer. And so I'd say it's way higher than 121%, actually. If you include YouTube, that's actually a stat that I'm most excited about. It says, shout out to your biggest fans for keeping you at the top of your game. You're a top 10 podcast for 25 fans. So 25 of you listen to this show in your top 10. That's interesting. It says you're a top 5 podcasts for 21 people, 21 fans, and you're the number 1 show for 6. So 6 of you listen to this podcast more than you listen to anything else. Honestly, though, that's got to be my friends and family, because people are just honestly better than me at making podcasts. And so I'm not going to be the top listened to podcast, even if only for the reason that I don't post every day. And like most people who take the podcast game serious and like really, really make a lot of money from it, post every single day. And so it's just impossible for me to beat them. So honestly, these people have to be somebody who know me well. It says that your top 10 fans listen to you 10 times more than other listeners. So really proud of you guys. Thanks for your loyalty. Even it sounds like, I bet when I was talking about an issue that you didn't necessarily find relevant to your own life, you're probably just listening out of loyalty. Like, my mom is definitely one of these 6 people. I'm just saying. My mom, my dad, my father-in-law is definitely on there. And so appreciate you guys for listening to me, even though I'm not talking to your season of life. It says, what kind of a creator are you? Weird kind of creator. I don't think they're going to be able to tie me down here. Basically, what they're doing here is you see that little triangle on your screen. They're figuring out what kind of things that I have. Can we rewatch that? I want to see that one more time. It was like if you posted a lot, if you were listened to a lot in a lot of different countries, or there was one more. Is there a way to replay that? There's not. It says that I'm a trendsetter, but that's definitely not true. I don't like trends. I think trends are a form of dishonesty. And as a content creator, I know I will never go anywhere without actually using trends. But what I find crazy is that people are willing to, like things based on how many other people like them. I think that's so dishonest. Like, you like things because you either they either generate value for you or they don't. And to just jump on a bandwagon and say you like something that just because everyone else is doing it, I think is so dishonest. Like, just tell me what you actually like, man. Don't tell me what people want you to say you like. I honestly that's crazy to me. I really want to go back up and see that thing though, because it was like the frequency of my posts. There was like a little graphic they used. And I'll have to rewatch this episode, I guess. But it says your fans have entered the conversation. I'm actually not as happy with that because I tried to make the Anchor or the podcasters for Spotify link in the show notes to send me a personalized audio voice message a bigger thing than I actually ended up making it. And I don't know. I was a little bit disappointed with that, but it is what it is. It says our podcast rating was 4.3. That's great. Honestly, the issue with this measurement is I haven't had that many people review the show, obviously, because I don't have that many listeners yet. And a very small percentage of listeners actually review the podcast they listen to, even though it's clicking one button, which is crazy. But my podcast rating was 4.3. And I'd say what happened here, because usually I just get 5 stars because people who really, really care about what I'm listening to will listen. And so they'll just give me a 5. But what happened here, I'd say, was somebody gave me, out of the people I had, somebody gave me a low one, like a 2 or a 3, because they didn't like something I talked about or it triggered them. And that dropped me that 0.7%. Because I think last year it was a 5, because just not that many people had done it. And everyone who had done it had given me a 5. So that was the average. I don't know. It says the Restoring Rapport podcast. Thank you for giving people something to talk about. But it's not over yet. Keep the conversation going and share with your fans. So that's what I'm doing with you now. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. This has been pretty fun. Little Christmas episode, Christmas special. Reach out and let me know, guys, in the comments on YouTube and the podcast platforms like Apple and Spotify through the comments, what your favorite Christmas tradition is and what you like doing and you're looking forward to doing this year with your family and friends, because I'm always looking for new Christmas traditions and I really want to hear about yours. Some of my favorites in the past have been Advent. My family's done Advent before. You just light specific candles, read a story every single day that leads up to December 25th and basically tells the nativity story, how Jesus came to earth. But really, really cool. That's been a Christmas tradition I really loved. Obviously, like getting together with friends and family is really good. Usually Lainey and I will, this year we're going to actually do something new, but normally we'll go over to her parents for Christmas Eve, my parents for Christmas Eve on the same day. And then we'll spend the night at my parents and have Christmas morning at my family's house, and then a bunch of family stuff after or before, depending on when people schedule what. And that's always a nice time for me. Growing up, I went to my aunt's in Lexington a lot during the Christmas season, and my gosh, that was some of the best memories of childhood that I have. It really was. And so, and I'm just now realizing as an adult the amount of work that adults put into making Christmas magical for children. Like, I work at a public school. I work at Rock Hill Elementary School. And the amount of effort that, people put into decorating that entire school, that, by the way, is like 3 football fields long, is insane. Like, they put so much effort, so much work into making the school look Christmassy that my mind is blown. And that's so not me. Like, I'm not a decoration guy, but I can recognize the effort that goes into making Christmas magical for these kids. And I've seen lots of memes circulating on Facebook right now about, you as the adult being the magic for kids and Christmas. Like, when you think of Christmas spirit and Christmas magic, a lot of that has to do with the effort that adults put into the event for kids. And that's honestly the reason that I look back on my Christmases as a young person fondly at my aunt's house, is because there was so much effort that went into that. Like 30 adults in my family cleared their schedules and took that time to stay in the same home together. That's already magical enough. Beyond that, they all put in hours and hours and hours into planning these huge meals. Like, there was so much good, unique food at these gatherings that's another thing I remember. The decorations were also part of that. Like, the atmosphere, the ambiance, the lighting of these events was so nice that was one of the things that brought the Christmas feelings to my young self. And that's something that I still remember. My point is, I still remember that, and I'm 25 years old now. And so that's going to be an exciting thing to do as a parent for my future kids, yes, and and the kids that I'm exposed to now through the public school system as well. But really excited for this, guys. I want to hear your Christmas traditions. I hope you've enjoyed some of mine. But again, reach out and let me know what yours are through the link in the show notes. I would love to hear those. Again, it would make me feel super connected to you as an audience member, and it would make the podcasting system two-way. And I realize I just said link in the show notes again. It's not actually there. Podcasters for Spotify took it out. So send me a voice message through Instagram or Facebook, and then I can listen to you there. And the reason I say voice message instead of like private message or direct message is because you can get more said in a voice message than you can in a text. Like if you type something out, it's going to take way longer, and you're also not going to be able to say as much as you would like. But if you record yourself, you can get a lot more words in, and I get more information basically. And I like to hear your own voice because it's more personal. So do that for me. I would love to hear you guys. Give me feedback on the show. So thank you so much for listening today. Hope you have a Merry Christmas this year. Spend time with your family, and especially your wife and children. If you have those, obviously most of you don't. Spend time with your significant other that you're moving towards the goal of marriage with, and keep Jesus Christ as the center of your thoughts. Keep Jesus Christ as the center of what informs your moral decisions and your decisions in your life. And remember his choice to come to earth and enter into our dysfunction in order to bring about restoration. And if you do that, guys, I think you'll have a really joyous Christmas season. And so Merry Christmas. Hope you guys have an awesome day, and I will talk to you all next time.